Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Well folks, it's official. Joe Biden is most likely going to be replaced at this point, or he's going to be put in a position where his re-election campaign is going to be severely held back. We've been talking a whole lot about possible impeachment, Joe Biden resigning, the 25th Amendment being used against him. And throughout these discussions, I've maintained this one specific stance, that the worst possible thing that could happen to Joe Biden and the Democrats is Joe getting primaried. And well, friends, it seems as though it's already started. Joe Biden is already being challenged for the 2024 Democratic nominee for president. This is possibly the worst thing that could happen because it's basically a vote of no confidence. Very similar to what you see in the parliament system in common law nations, where now it seems as though Democrats themselves want to unseat their own president, want to replace him, and fight for that Democrat nomination to go against Donald Trump in 2024. And while these Democrats are of course telling themselves that Joe Biden is an incredibly weak, frail candidate who's most likely going to lose in 2024, what's even worse is the Democrat Party being so unstable that they're trying to oust their own political leader, their own party leader. I mean, nothing promotes stability like a mutiny against the damn captain of the ship. If what we're seeing right now continues and more people start to challenge Joe Biden for the 2024 nomination, then we are going to see a Democrat Party that is totally dysfunctional, in total disarray, and this could very well signal the end of Democrat hopes ahead of 2024, of course barring a miracle candidate who just happens to be an absolute star. Not exactly seeing it just yet, but things just got real messy for the Democrats in Joe Biden's re-election campaign. We got some stuff to get into, folks, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so take a look at this from the Conservative Brief. Joe Biden officially has his first Democrat primary challenger for 2024. For months, an increasing number of Democrats have been whispering that they are not thrilled at the prospects of President Joe Biden running again in 2024, with the country in economic dire straits, amid high inflation caused by rising gas, fuel, food, and commodity prices, lingering supply chain issues, a chaotic southwestern border, and other issues. Biden's approval rating and that of the Vice President Kamala Harris have tanked, hovering somewhere between mid to upper 30s, depending on the survey. That has left many Democrats already frantic about November midterms scrambling to find a more competitive alternative to Biden, and perhaps even Harris ahead of 2024. And now Biden has his first official primary challenger, political activist Jerome Siegel, who says he will focus his campaign on job security and peace in the Middle East. Siegel's announcement came less than a week after he conceded the Democratic gubernatorial primary in Maryland. He ran in a crowded primary, losing to Oprah-backed Wes Moore, who was declared the winner late Friday and will go on to run against Trump-backed Dan Cox in the general election. Siegel garnered the second fewest votes among 10 Democratic candidates, receiving less than 1% of the vote. And so of course, I mean, it's not exactly like this big bombshell challenger that Joe Biden is receiving, but folks, it's the first stepping stone, or it's the first step. And even if it's just a bunch of hopeless Democrat hacks who can't even get 1% of the vote but continue to think that they can fail upwards, it's basically the Democrat standard at this point. The point is, Joe Biden is being challenged by his own party. There's just so much negative surrounding the Democrat Party right now, and that just doesn't bode well for their political stock or their electability moving forward into election season. Mark my words, folks, this isn't going to be the first Democratic primary challenger that Joe Biden receives. The question is, how many will he receive, and to what level or to what caliber? And another question is Joe Biden going to be willing to relinquish power? He seems so far dead set on remaining in power regardless of the situation, showing an absolute refusal to step down regardless of how bad things are going, how old he is, or how much his brain don't work. And so most likely that's not going to change. And what that means going forward is as he gets more and more primary challengers, and as there's more and more calls from his own party for him to step down or resign, and he continues to refuse to do so, that creates nothing but drama and a picture of absolute instability that the American people will just not be convinced to vote for. And we can just see it in the numbers, folks. In fact, the most recent CNN poll shows that 75% of Democrats surveyed don't want Biden to run in 2024.
Tonight, 75%. The vast majority of Democrats, 3 out of 4, don't want Biden to be their nominee in 2024. That is according to a new CNN poll. Out front now, David Axelrod, former senior advisor to President Obama. David, I heard that and sort of stopped in my tracks for a second. 3/4 of Democrats don't want the incumbent president to run again. How worried should Biden be right now about that?
Well, I mean, obviously, this is a very unhappy bit of data for him, and I'm sure, It is concerning.
Well, already this little interaction with Joe Biden isn't exactly aging well.
Mr. President, what's your message to Democrats who don't want you to run again?
They want me to run.
2/3 say they
Read
don't.
the polls. Read the polls, Jack. You guys are all the same. That poll showed that 92% of Democrats, if I ran, would vote for me.
A majority of Democrats say they don't want you to run again in 2024.
92% said if I did, they'd vote for me.
Really not aging well, because that 64% figure from maybe a week or two ago of Democrats who don't want Joe Biden to run for re-election is already up 11 points at 75% in the most recent CNN survey. That's not counting independents and Republicans. Most likely, if it was, the number would be above 80% of the American electorate don't want this guy to run again. And what Joe's telling himself is that people want him and that he's going to run, and that's just a recipe for disaster. And it's even worse when you see the political turmoil between actual Democrat politicians and the president. CNN was also reporting on this.
You're seeing this in your state, in Georgia, in the sense that you have Senator Warnock, who's trying to run for re-election. When he came into office and helped flip the Senate to the Democrats, he was a big buddy of Joe Biden. Now you go down on the battleground states like Georgia, a lot of Democrats are backing off a little bit because they politically think they need distance.
There's quite a bit of distancing from Warnock's campaign, from the president.
And this is another factor to consider. Joe Biden is not receiving endorsements from his own political party. Here's Cori Bush when questioned if she wants to see Joe Biden run for a second term.
Do you want to see Joe Biden run for a second term?
Yeah,
That's an easy question. That's not going to take long. Do you want to see Joe Biden run?
I don't want to answer that question because we have not, I don't want to answer that question.
Okay.
I mean, he's the president and he has the right to run for a second term. Absolutely. But
right
I don't want to, I'd rather you not do that answer.
You got like 2 minutes to be in the car.
Yeah, I know. I got to get to the.
Well, thanks very much.
The other thing.
Immediately, staff rushes to her rescue. She's got to go, end the interview. But it's a common thread that we're seeing throughout. Democrat politicians want to distance themselves from the failure that is Joe Biden. I mean, just look at the 2022 midterm strategies for Democrats. How many candidates have we covered that are explicitly distancing themselves, not only from the radical left, but Joe Biden specifically? People know that presidential approval rating in a midterm election is one of the most important factors to predicting the outcome, and with Joe Biden at 36-37% average approval across the polls, at his lowest at 29% and 31 and 33%, Democrat candidates don't want anything to do with this guy. Frankly, nobody wants anything to do with this guy, but it's so bad that now even Democrats are feeling the exact same way. Speaking of polling data and people who just don't want anything to do with him, take a look at this report right over here from News Nation, covering the most recent Quinnipiac University poll showing Joe Biden's approval rating among Hispanics.
Democrats losing a huge, classically reliable base with the Latino vote. A new Quinnipiac poll finding that President Biden's support among Hispanics is just 19% right now.
19% support from Hispanics. If that's not a mass Democrat exodus, then I don't know what is. How are Democrats expecting to win in Arizona and Nevada if they're underwater with Hispanics to this extent? What we're looking at is possibly a historic blowout in 2022 and an absolutely dysfunctional Democrat establishment and Democrat party ahead of 2024. You have the far left versus the corporate Democrat, who are constantly taking shots at each other in the mainstream media and in interviews. You have the Democrat base that's pretty much rejecting both sides. Young socialist college students don't want anything to do with the Democrats of old and Joe Biden. Moderate Democrats look at Joe Biden and see a shell of his former self and a guy who's caving in to the pressure of the woke mob. We have Democrats unwilling to endorse their own leader of the party. Joe Biden's approval rating in the gutter, they're losing support in every single key demographic. And the most important demographics, suburban voters, suburban moms, and especially Hispanics, and even the black vote, which could have a serious impact in places like Atlanta and Philadelphia. And the whole thing is just looking like a mess. That's the conclusion of it all. It's just a complete mess. Their messaging is a mess. They have no clear solution to any problems. They're talking about January 6th and all kinds of other nonsense and garbage that the American people don't care about. They're focused on woke terminology and all this woke garbage instead of sound, strong policy. They're fighting each other, and now they're trying to oust their own political leader. And again, really, who's going to vote for that? I don't think too many people are looking at that as enticing, as a quality product that they want to buy into. It's not a political stock that they're excited about. But in the end, it feels almost like destiny. It feels like this this was the prediction that people have been making forever, that you can't have two different factions, corporate Democrats and socialists, come all under the same wing, under the same archway, hating each other's guts and pulling in both different directions, inconsistent policy that's all over the place. You cannot have that kind of scenario, a political party, a group of people that are steering in different directions and expect the ship to move forward and to cover distance. It's just not a good strategy. And it seems as though right now, under Joe Biden, the Democrat Party is kind of imploding. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of loving it. But that, my friends, is what I got for you. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like. I gotta get back to work. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.